we've had a really interesting sequence of examination into AI, and hopefully you're starting to get familiar with how it can really improve your day-to-day productivity. So again, we're extending out this real emphasis on small steps, but really getting you, really encouraging you to try it, to test it, and see where it can really work for you and your business. So today we're going to focus on three things. Our main core of today is to really examine Microsoft Copilot, really explaining what it is and why it matters. And we're really delighted today to have Phil Cave, who's the technical director of AdaptTech, who are a training company, who's really going to go into more detail about how this can be used and how, again, it can be applied to our business. And hopefully at the end, we might have a bit of time for Q&A and next steps. Before we go, so just to reiterate, I know I'm making this point, but really we're looking at experimenting, encouraging you to use it and get more productive, to complete more tasks, and really to see where this can work for your business. So we've got a lot of niche vertical sub companies in Buckinghamshire. So we want to understand where it can really be used in your particular business. Before I go on to introduce our guest, Phil, today, I just want to quickly focus on what generative AI is, just to bang home that message. So this is a new form of artificial intelligence, and what makes it unique is its capability to generate human-like text, images, or other media and deliver that in real time using a process called large language models. That's what we are focusing on. Secondly, ChatGPT. The launch of ChatGPT in November 30th, 2022, that was really the prompt, I think, that brought generative AI into the mainstream. And you can see there the OpenAI logo, the ChatGPT app, and on the right-hand side, of course, we have Google Bard. So, there is a subtext to this where Microsoft have really taken a lead with generative AI, and they made a big investment on something like £2 billion into OpenAI, and some commentators have argued that they've been very strategic and very clever in the way that they've included generative AI features into Bing search, and potentially that's going to be a challenger in the future to Google search. So some of you have probably come across and started to use it through your Bing searching. So that's what we're talking about here with ChatGPT. Why it matters, just quickly, we talked about this in the first session. It's really the speed of adoption. So ChatGPT reached 1 million users in only 4 days. But I think what's interesting about this is the blend of users, not just the usual early tech adopters, but a real spread of different backgrounds, including small business owners like you and I. So this is, I think, an example of not only just the speed at which it's grown, but actually the ease of using it and how it can be applied to our businesses. So that's all of that. Microsoft Copilot. So this is really the core of what we're talking about today. So Microsoft launched their Copilot product in Feb 2023. You can see here the logo on the right-hand side of that slide I'm showing you. We're showing you that there because you will start to see in your Microsoft 365, assuming that you use that for your productivity, your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you'll start to see that logo in the ribbon when you're doing your day-to-day tasks. So that's quite important to keep that front of mind when we're using this. I'll get Phil to clarify the pricing, but following up to the enterprise version of Copilot was Copilot Pro, which launched only a couple of months ago. I've been using it. It's fantastic. Particularly, I love its application in things like Word and structuring Word, using it in PowerPoint to create quick, structured PowerPoint slides. But I'm going to pass on to Phil, who's going to go into more detail and show you examples of how we can use Microsoft Copilot to really get going, to really accelerate this real emphasis on day-to-day tasks and productivity. So I want to welcome Phil. Take a quick breath there. Phil, over to you. I'm not going to do any formal introductions, but let's go straight into this and welcome Phil from Adepting.
Thank you, David. Okay, so thank you for joining today. We're going to look at Microsoft's Copilot. Brief agenda: what is Copilot, what it does, how much it costs, and we'll clarify that pricing, and who can use it. So it's a smart assistant. It will help you using the natural language model, creating documents, answering questions, searching the internet for you. But it will also connect to your data in your Microsoft 365 environment. So not only does it use the internet to give you answers, it can also use your own data. So there's more than one place where we can get to Copilot. I mean, there is some free usage of Copilot, and we'll look at that, and we'll have some proper demonstrations of that. And then there is the paid for versions of Copilot, which is Copilot 365, and that's the version that uses your data, integrates into Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Outlook, and so on. So the cost, if you're not going for the free version, the cost is £24.70 per user per month, but that's on a 1 year's commitment. So that does mean you're going to have to purchase 1 year upfront. So the cost of that is £296 plus VAT. Who will find it useful? Absolutely everybody. In fact, one of the examples I'll show you, which is in PowerPoint, will show that even my mother, who is now 85, found it useful. And I've used a live example there. But if you're a business owner, brilliant. It will pull all the data together for you, let you do reporting. It will have access to all the data that is available in your Office 365 tenant. And employees can use it for creating documents, creating emails, responding to emails, creating presentations, creating proposals. So really it's useful for anybody. So I'm going to give some live examples. It's always dangerous doing things live, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so I'm now going to share my screen. Okay, so what we're looking at now is one of my screens where I've currently got Microsoft Edge open, and I'm also using Microsoft Windows 11. So we'll see from this screen that here I can get to Copilot. This icon is only available in Windows 10 and Windows 11, and only if your device is joined to a Microsoft Azure AD. So you may not see it here. If you see it here, well and good. If you don't, we can assist you with putting that there. Also within Edge, you'll see it at the top right-hand corner. So if I click there, that will bring out Copilot. We're seeing the free version of Copilot at this point. This icon brings up exactly the same version. So what the free version does for its data, it looks out to the internet. So if data is available on the internet, it uses that. Now, Microsoft actually use a technical term and say that it's grounded to the internet. When we start looking at the 365 version, that takes its information not only from the internet, but also from your own data within your Microsoft Office 365 environment. So Microsoft say that it's grounded to 365. So I've done a couple of pre-demonstrations here. So I've said here, generates an image of a robot ballerina twirling in a field of digital flowers. And it's created that for me. It actually took about 2 or 3 minutes to create it. Hence, I created it earlier. So you can use it for images. The images it creates are unique and they're there for you to use. When we've given it an instruction, it will often give us some additional options. So here, for instance, it says add some butterflies to the image. And that's going to go off now and try to do that for us. I'll leave it doing that. If we look to the top here, we'll find we've got a tab here for work-related things and web-related things. I'm leaving it on web. I get to choose whether I want it to be creative. If I leave it at creative, it does jolly good, nice things for us. Whether I want more balanced or whether I want more precise. So if you're doing research, you might want it to be set to more precise. And you can then ask it some questions. Okay, so that's now added some butterflies for us. If I want to ask it questions, I just have to type it in to here. So tell me about Adeptech Limited. That's going to go off now and it's going to search the internet to see what it can find out about Adeptech. We'll leave that until it starts responding. That will take a few seconds. It will get there eventually. And then we'll move on. We'll start looking at the Office 365 versions. Okay, there we go. Starting to do something for me. And that starts responding. So it's a bit richer than using a Bing search, because if we used a Bing search, that would bring back hundreds of results and you'd have to choose which one to click on, whereas this is giving us a proper English language summary. So it's pulled together everything it can find on the internet and then compiled it for us and is giving us all of the salient points. So we'll stop that one. Okay, so how do we get to the 365 version? Okay, so the first one I will look at is Outlook. Here's an email that I received this morning from a recruitment agency. I get 50 a day, I'm sure. But we'll see here that it's given me the option of a summary by Copilot. So rather than read all through here, I can ask for a summary. And that's going to look at the email for me. Where this is really useful is if it's a very long email chain with lots of conversations, it will point out who said what and any tasks that should come out of it, that type of thing. But that's summarised that for me. If I want to reply to this, we can see now that it's given me the Copilot icon in my ribbon. And I can draft with Copilot. So I want to tell this this person that I've got no interest. So I can just say, not interested. And I've got no requirement, which is a bit rude. So I can generate. So that's going to take my sentiment and hopefully make it look a bit more professional and a bit less direct. There we go. Thank you for your email and for introducing time recruitment. Unfortunately, we are not interested at this time. So it's drafted that email for me and I can keep that or I can edit it, so on and so forth. So it's a nice quick way for me to respond to emails. If I want to create a new email, I can draft my email with Copilot. And again, I can just tell the system what I want to say, and it will give me a draft email that I can work from. If I look at Microsoft Word, okay, so if I open a Word document, I can pull Copilot open from here, and I can ask it questions about the document. Now, this is a blank document, so I'm not going to ask questions, but if this was a 20-page proposal, for instance, I could ask it to summarize the document. I could ask it to tell me what the costs were involved in that proposal and that type of thing. If I click here, this is going to let me draft the document. So rather than me write a whole document, I can, there we go, put something in, just. I'm asking it to write a LinkedIn recommendation for Fred the cleaner. Now, I am guilty of using this in real life to write recommendations for people on LinkedIn that have asked me to give them recommendations. But we can see that that's given me quite a good recommendation. And I can just edit that a bit, and I've got the document there written. I can also get it to attach from here to my existing documents that are stored in either OneDrive or SharePoint. So from here, it's going to allow me to find documents that already exist. Okay, so I found a training guide which I've written for another company. It's about a 30-page training guide, but I'm asking it to just write me some brief notes. That document is stored within Microsoft SharePoint. It could be within OneDrive. That's going to look at the document and pull information out and hopefully write me some training notes that I could use while delivering training. And we can see it's now starting to respond. And it's giving me some nice headings. And when that's finished, that will give me a document that I can actually use. So if I'm going into a training session, I can pull some training notes together very quickly. Normally it takes me an hour or two before I go into a session to write out some training notes. And I can stop that generating at any time that I wish to. If I look at PowerPoint, creating presentations in PowerPoint can be quite daunting until you've got some templates up and running. So I've now just pulled up Copilot and I've told it to create a presentation introducing a local NATA group. And that's now going to go off. It should find imagery for me. It should create something that looks pretty good. And with changing a few words, maybe putting on some contact details and a phone number, should be usable. So we'll give that a moment. Okay. So that's gone off and it's got some imagery. It's given us some salient points. Oh, bring your own knitting supplies and projects. So we didn't give it any of that information, but it's looked out to the internet to find information about this and that group so that it can understand what it is and then create that presentation for us. What we could have done is say, create a presentation based on a proposal document that we've got within our Office 365 environment. So the training document I showed earlier, I could have asked it to use that as a basis to create this presentation. So next I want to move across to Teams. Okay, so in Teams, the Copilot will appear in the left-hand side here as a chatbot, and from there I can ask it anything. So when I got back from my holiday last week, I wanted to find out if I still had a valid license for Copilot. So I asked it a question. It actually says it couldn't find any specific information, but it then told me how much it was going to cost me. So it's, you know, it's reasonably sensible. So you can ask it any questions you want and it will go off and try and find that information for you. So the sort of responses you get here are similar to those that we saw within Microsoft Edge. Just give that a moment to finish cooking. Now, of course, this is looking within our tenant as well. So Microsoft releases updates second Tuesday of every month. The other place where we will see Copilot is when we've had meetings. So we had a meeting earlier on today. We recorded the meeting, but what we also have is a transcript. So there we have a transcript. Everything everybody said. Copilot will appear here. And then I can start asking questions about the meeting. And that will then go off and have a look through to see what it can find based on that meeting. We can also, from here, ask it to create a template for a proposal, for instance. So there we've got some takeaways. So we're going to have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So that's one of the things I know to expect based on that meeting. Okay, so that's where it will appear in Teams. But if I want to go further, I can get it to create a presentation from here and so on and so forth. So it will save hours of time. Okay. We can ask it to summarize chats. I'm not going to ask it to summarize any of these chats because they're all reasonably private and we don't want to see what might be in the summaries, but it will bring out all of the salient points for me. Okay, so that is it within Teams. At this point, I think I've given a live demonstration of whereabouts you can see Copilot within your Microsoft environment. And I'm going to now stop sharing so we can continue. Okay. I've now finished the demos. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Phil. I was going to just while we got you here, thank you very much for that. And you can see it, get a taste, all of you watching this, of what it can do. Phil, on the subject of Excel, do you mind giving us an overview of what it can do with Excel? What's been your experience with Excel for any financial people among us?
Okay, so within Excel, and you pull up Copilot, again, you've got the option to interrogate a document. So if we have a document with lots of data in it, we can ask it to create graphs from the data, so on and so forth. So any question that you can think of to interrogate that data, type it in natural English, and it will give you answers. It will create pivot tables for you.
Yeah.
It will create graphs for you. So you can say, create a bar graph using the data in column A, so on and so forth, and it will do that for you automatically.
And will it, for example, extract analysis? So if you had I guess, the financial report for your whole past 12 months profit and loss account, can it do quite sophisticated analysis on, profit in any kind of insights, for example?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
Yes, it can. Now you've got to be quite specific with your prompts, and by prompts I mean what you're typing to get your answers back.
Yeah.
And you've also got to make sure that you verify that what it's told you is correct. Because if it can't identify the data in a column by its name and its data type, it could make some assumptions that are wrong. And of course, it always tells you that. It will always say this data may not be correct and you should validate it first. But absolutely, it can do all that for you.
Okay, great. And do you mind just explaining to everyone, because prompting is obviously a major part of these sessions.
Mm-hmm.
When you say you need to focus on the prompt, do you mind just sharing an example of what you mean in the context of getting the best information from Excel?
Yes, I've got to try and find a document now that's got things in that aren't private.
It'd be great for you to share that, just to really make it clear. I think that's quite important. While we're waiting for Phil, if you do have any questions while he's here, we've got a few questions that are coming in. I'm going to go through those after he's shared his Excel example with us. So anything else that you have a question about Copilot, please put it in the chat and I will come to it.
Just trying to find a suitable document at the moment.
I'll just answer the first question. Andy Burrow asked the question about how you get Copilot. I assume that means on your Word document. So when you pull up a Word document, the actual logo will appear, the box which will prompt you so you can populate a question. It will appear straight away.
It will, provided you have a license for it.
Yes. There was another question about the license. So as soon as you purchase the Copilot license, and you download it, will integrate into your existing Microsoft 365 account. So you'll start to see it integrated and you'll start to see that logo on the ribbon so you can start using it. How are you doing, Phil, with that?
I'm trying to find a document that doesn't contain anything sensitive.
Okay, no problem. I'm just going through the question. Phil, while you're doing that, do you mind asking, there's a question about the free version of Copilot. How does that differ from the paid version in terms of quality? So, for example, with images, do you mind just explaining?
Okay, so with things like images, there is no difference.
Okay.
The difference is that the data that you get back from it for the free version doesn't include any of your own data in your Microsoft environment. It only includes data from the internet. To use data from your own environment so you can get some business data back, then you need the paid version. Otherwise, you can't interrogate your own data.
Okay, thank you. And we had a big there was a lot of interest in terms of privacy and potential dangers with ChatGPT. But one question I have in my mind is, if you have a member of staff who accidentally shares some private information, some private data on their Microsoft Copilot account, is there anything we need to, any of the attendees today need to be aware of in terms of privacy and any of their staff members sharing anything onto the Copilot account? Does that go into a broader index? Is there anything that they need to be aware of in that context?
Okay, so if you're going to use Copilot 365, then it will have access to all of the data in your tenant that you as a user have access to. So, for instance, if you're using SharePoint and you have a site that contains financial information, if you have access to that data, then it will bring information back from it. So what you need to do is make sure that your data is secured properly and only the correct people in the organization have access. So you need to review your environment and make sure that your permissions for access are in place. Otherwise, Copilot will go and interrogate that data, and it may bring back information that is sensitive.
Okay, I think that's quite an important point. So we need to really be a bit careful, review our environment, and just make sure no one's sharing personal information to their personal ChatGPT account. So it goes into, so we're preventing sensitive data going into the general index. That's important. Other questions we might have? Yes, I have another one for you. In our experience with Teams, one of the issues we've had is that when people sometimes finish a Teams call, sometimes they're talking after the call, and some of those conversations have been recorded and then added to the transcript. And again, Phil, can you give any guidelines regarding team recordings and just any kind of cautious words of caution, because we found that potentially could be an issue.
It could be, but of course, if you're going to record a Teams meeting, you're always seeking permission of those people involved.
Yeah.
What you can do though is you can limit within Teams who can start a recording.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there are policies within Office 365.
Yeah.
Where you can just create a group of people that are allowed to start recording.
Yeah.
And anybody that's not in that group can't start a recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. So again, it's about limitation, just being aware of who's in the call, who we're recording, just being a bit conscious about that when we're doing live Teams and how we're integrating Copilot into Teams. In my experience, the actual summary transcript of conversation in Teams is superbly useful for improving efficiency. But just put, just be aware of that potential problem.
That's
Phil,
correct.
how are we doing on the Excel? Have we any luck?
Yes, I've managed to bring up a document that I don't think
brilliant.
contains anything too sensitive.
Good. Do you want to just share to everyone? Thank you.
Okay. So this is a list of time consumed for our support services. And I've just said here how much time has been consumed. And because it can understand the column headings, it's brought back some answers. But it's now suggesting some more complex prompts. So we can say by date as a line chart. So that's a much more complex prompt. So if I, rather than type that and keep you all waiting, That's now analysing the data, and that's brought me back, you know, as a time chart by day, how much time's been consumed. And that's what we've got. So the more detail you put in your prompts, the better the information is that you get back. Okay.
That's a really important point I think we've made throughout the sessions is the detail behind prompts, the detail behind the questions we're asking. That's really good, going to determine the success of its application in features like Excel.
Yeah.
Really important point.
Yeah. And this has now created a pivot table, and it's just told us why it's created that pivot table, and so on and so forth. Does that help?
Yeah, that really helps. So I think, Phil, am I right in saying I think Excel is going to be a really big opportunity for smaller businesses? I just wondered, is that a shared view of yours?
Oh, absolutely. Excel's brilliant. And then if you want even more business analysis, then using Microsoft Power BI to interrogate Excel, and again using Copilot will give you even more pertinent data.
Okay. And is Copilot integrated into OneNote?
Do you know, I don't know the answer. I don't believe it is. I've not seen it yet.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got OneNote open on another screen,
Yep.
which I'm using, and the answer to that is no, not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. We've got a bit more time, so if you don't mind just answering, I'm just going to fire a few more questions at you as we continue. We're kind of moving towards the end, but this is a question from Andrew Gall, who said, I use Microsoft Tools on an Apple MacBook. I do not think I get access to Copilot for that. Do you mind clarifying? Is that an answer, Phil, that you would know?
Yes, you do. Yeah, the answer is yes, you definitely do get access to it.
Okay.
But you don't get it. You don't get access via Safari. So the default browser that Apple Mac users use is Apple Safari. But you can download Microsoft Edge, and if you download Microsoft Edge, then you'll get that full access. So this is Edge. I run this on my Mac, by the way. Don't tell Microsoft I'm a Mac user. And then you get all that access there. And also, if you've got an Office 365 subscription and you add Copilot license, then it's in all of the Mac apps as well. And in fact, I normally use a Mac in my home office. Today I'm not. Today I'm using my Surface. But that works perfectly well.
Okay, great. And is there anything, have you noticed one of the issues with ChatGPT is data and recency of data? Has that been an issue with any applications in Copilot? Being up to date with
not if you're using Copilot 365, because it uses the information that's in your tenant primarily, so it's grounded into your tenant before it starts taking data from the internet. And of course, you can never trust data on the internet. It depends what source it's getting it from. So you've always got to be mindful that if you're using the Bing version, that data is coming from anywhere on the internet. And we all know if something comes from Wikipedia, people can edit Wikipedia entries and often do.
Okay, thank you. And James asked, does Copilot pull and learn from your own internal data as well? And what's the kind of confidential? How do you control that?
Okay, so it only pulls it from your data that you're keeping in 365. So for instance, OneDrive. So OneDrive is part of Microsoft 365. So it pulls data from there. Nobody else is going to get data from your OneDrive unless you've shared the documents with them. So if you share documents with people in your organization from OneDrive, then if they're using Copilot, it will pull data back from those locations.
Thank
so
you.
again, it just makes sure that you haven't got documents shared that you shouldn't have.
Okay, and on that issue of sharing, Andrew Gore's asked another question about HR. Is it normally a function of HR that controls the permissions for, you know, security of SharePoint? What's the best way for a small business to manage that in the best, most secure way?
Okay, so best practice is that you use a proper SharePoint consultant to set up the permissions at the start, and then get some training on how to manage the permissions moving forwards. Permissions are the more complex part of SharePoint, so they should be set up originally by somebody that understands them. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So I think we've had most of the questions. Keep them coming in. But Phil, if we are, again, I guess a simple question, if we are quite new to, most of us are quite new to this, where within the suite of kind of Microsoft applications is a good starting point? If you know, if you're saying to one of the business owners, look, I'm quite new to this, you know, from my experience, I found the most value from summarizing Word documentation. That's been my real sweet spot for myself personally. But I just wonder, through your own lens, what would be your best recommendation for any of the members here today to get starting on making productive improvements straight away?
Okay, so my point of view, I'm using it for creating base documents and responding to email. So I'm using it to draft email or to respond to emails, especially long emails, and also for creating proposals. So if I want to create a proposal, you know, go into Word and tell it to start creating a proposal for me. It saves many hours over a week. Okay. Because you can create a proposal based on another one. So if you've created something that's, you know, similar, you can ask it to create a proposal based on that, but for a new client, and it will swap out all of the client details for the new client details, add the logos automatically, and all that type of thing.
Brilliant. And lastly, there's a lot of interest in marketing and in creating visual logos and marketing assets for social media. Again, do you have any good practice tips on creating ideas for content?
You know, I just set a health and safety system up for the Wine Society, and they didn't have any imagery, so I did use the Copilot within Bing to create all of the imagery for their icons. And it was brilliant. I mean, I actually said things like, you know, create me an image of a near-miss accident in a warehouse involving an employee. And it came back with the most amazing results. Of course, they're free to use and they're unique. So, you know, if you want something that looks good, then using imagery that way is a good way of doing it.
And that's the image tool that's in the 365 suite?
No, that's actually within Copilot in Bing. Sorry, Copilot in Edge.
Okay.
So that's free. And that's the one that we saw earlier on when it created the ballerina dancing.
Okay. And there's a question about, do you know this, can it be used in WordPress? I assume no, but just wanted to check with you.
Yes, you assume correctly. No.
No. Okay, great. We're heading towards the end. We're heading up to 10:02. So Phil, thank you so much for today's session. It's been really enjoyable. I think we're going to leave Phil's contact details at the end of today. So if you want to get in touch with him, you can do so. But thanks very much for your questions. Please follow up after this session if you do have any other questions, and myself and Phil will be pleased to answer. As was said earlier, we are recording these sessions. So if you do have a request to get access to them, please reach out to Paula and she will gladly share them with you. I'm going to now pass back to my colleagues to wrap up, but thank you for staying with us. And that was really useful. And I think you've given us a real inspiring once over on what can be done. I'm really excited by the email because I get so much email. So thank you, Phil. And I will pass back to BBF.
David, thank you so much for summing up, and thank you, Phil, for going through all of this morning. I think we've covered an awful lot, and it really has helped us to move our own knowledge and thoughts and processes forward. So thank you very much for that. I'm just flicking through there. It certainly has opened my eyes to all the possibilities, and we really need to now, as we have been over the last 3 sessions, starting now to put it into practice, and that is the thing. So I would just like to reiterate, many of you this morning here have been on our previous sessions, so we do have recordings. If you do want to go back and get the recording from previous sessions, please email in and we can send you those links. They're not up for public viewing, but if you wish to go back, then do so. But I would very much like to say thank you for David for instigating this whole series. It really has been incredibly worthwhile. Phil, for joining us from Adeptech this morning and helping us through navigate this next stage. We are far more knowledgeable than we were a few months ago, so thank you very much for that. And while I have you here, just to reiterate, there is further help available for any business here with our growth program, so please do reach out if you are looking, if you're struggling with those business challenges. Just because you've reached out doesn't mean to say that you're, it's any slight on your business. It's always a very positive. The businesses who do reach out really do make a difference, so we'd love to start talking with you and supporting you on that. So lots of things that we can do, and lots of previous people who have benefited from our growth program support there. If that is not right for you, then maybe it would be looking at your own net zero credentials for the business. Many businesses recognize that actually today they need this as part of their sales tool. They need to be showing their own customer base that they are a net zero business. And equally, we have support around that, helping you produce your own carbon footprint and calculator. And so do get in touch with us if that is something that you would like to have done for your own business. So that is our Net Zero Bucks program, and lots of support on that. And finally there, on 20th of March, the date for your diary is a Net Zero Power Hour, looking at, that whole aspect of avoiding greenwashing and offsetting with confidence. So do join us on the 20th of March for an a power hour on net zero, not AI this time. Okay, so 20th of March for the power hour there. For the rural businesses amongst you, there are business grants available for capital expenditure on rural postcodes within the county. If that's of interest, then do contact us, please, and we can get you with talking to the right people on that. It is the time for business awards, for the Buckinghamshire Business Awards. It is being launched next week, and there is a lot to be considering, lots of different options, lots of different awards. So please do come and talk to us. We do have an event on tomorrow, I believe, actually looking at our starting points for our awards, but there are different sessions. And the closing date is not until the 20th of May. There are going to be business award sessions being held, and the opening entries and things like that, a session at Pinewood and also a session at Silverstone. But we're starting in Aylesbury tomorrow. If that is of any interest, then please do contact us, and we can help you look at how you can actually highlight your own business and get some fantastic coverage regarding our Buckinghamshire Business Awards. And certainly the people who have always participated in that always have found it to be incredibly well worthwhile. Other than that, just get involved. We're all about helping and supporting you. So do get involved, do ask us questions, do get involved, because it is about that networking, and you'll be surprised actually when you do, you'll be finding other like-minded business owners and businesses who equally want to help and share each other and get involved. So do that, and it is more than just being on your own. It is part of that being something bigger. So thanks once again for everything that you have participated in, those questions. There are lots of events happening in the next few months, so do get involved. And if there's anything that you want, we're here to help and support you. So once again, it's been a fabulous 3 sessions. David, thank you very much. And Phil, thank you for joining us today. And we will stay here if there's any immediate questions. But other than that, if you do want to get copies of the previous recordings, then do let us know.